What is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Coos. I'm coming to you direct from the hills of wild and wonderful West Virginia, and this is Coos' Corner. Thank you for dropping in. Before I get into the topic of my show, which is my reaction to last night's Guaranteed Rate Bowl and West Virginia's loss to Minnesota, I want to ask that if you get through this video and you like what you hear, please give me that thumbs up. Please hit the red subscribe button to get access to college football content almost every day. Share it with your friends. Also, be on the lookout. I'm now blessed to be part of the Coast to Coast College Football Network. So look out for that on Twitter and on Facebook. Let's get on with the show. I don't know where to start. I guess I'll start. I'm not going to throw a bunch of stats at you in this video. I'm just going to tell you how I feel after watching last night's fiasco by the Mountaineers. It was hard to watch. Let's just start at the defensive side of the ball. Defense didn't play terrible last night. They played pretty good. In my opinion, played well enough to win. Yes, they gave up 100 yards rushing to two guys. But they held Minnesota under their season average. They held them to 18 points. They forced 2 turnovers, which they have not been doing this year much. So in that regard, I felt like they played well enough to win. The offense put them in some bad situations they were able to get out of. The missed field goal, the one potentially long run that Akeem Mesidor was able to stop with a hustle play that led to no points. Just, things like that I felt like the defense stood up and gave the team a chance to win, like, to be honest, which they've done pretty much most of the year. But look, when you hold a team to 18 points, you should be able to win in FBS football at Power 5 level. If you can't score 18 points, something's wrong with your offense, which I'll get to in a minute. Let's touch on special teams. Been a struggle most of the season, and it showed last night. They struggled with kickoffs, kicking them out of bounds, kicking them short. There was a few punts that could have been better and weren't. They too many, a couple of line drive punts that didn't have any hang time, didn't give coverage team time. A few chances to pin them deep, and they didn't do it. Just not great in that front. And then you look at, there was no field goals attempted, so you can't really say much about Casey Legg in his game because he didn't get any chances last night. Then you look at, let's go to offense. Holy cow. I haven't even seen Jarret Doege's stat line from the game. I haven't looked at it. Don't really need to. I watched the game, as most of you Mountaineer fans probably did. I watched it all the way to the end. Fighting sleep, but I got through it. Doege did not play good. Look, it wasn't all Doege's fault. The offensive line struggled last night. I mean, there were a couple times that Minnesota was able to get the Doege rushing 3 guys. Think about that. West Virginia has 6 offensive linemen at one time. They had their 5 normal plus a tight end. Plus they had a running back there with him to block. Minnesota had a 3 down lineman, and they were able to get a sack with no blitz. Think about that. How in the world does that even happen? And then Doege, when he did have time, he wasn't making decisions quick. He was holding on his first option too long. He wasn't making his reads fast enough, which, to be honest, I feel like he struggled with most of the season. He made a few bad decisions. Had the one interception, which I put partially on him, partially on the line, because he did have pressure in his face, and his hand got hit as he threw the ball, which I'm sure affected his throw. But at the same time, he probably shouldn't have made the throw in the first place with somebody in his face. So, it's partial on him too, in my opinion. The one bright spot on offense, I thought Tony Mathis looked pretty good last night. He made a couple of nice catches, made some guys miss in space, was hitting holes. I had no issue with Tony Mathis's game last night. He struggled a couple times on some block pickups, but for the most part, I felt like he played well, especially running the ball and receiving the ball. Wide receiver position. Look, you don't see this on camera a lot because the camera doesn't show the receivers running the routes a lot. But I feel like maybe our wide receiving core, as good as they've been catching the ball this year versus past years, I just don't feel like they're getting open very well. Doege, a lot of times, seems like he has nowhere to go with the football. I don't think our receivers, maybe their route running needs some work. I don't know. I'm not saying it does. I'm not a coach, and I haven't seen these guys run routes enough to be able to answer that. But he just didn't seem like he had anywhere to go with it. Even few times he had time, there was a lot of times he had nowhere to throw it. So either the receivers aren't getting open, or he just isn't throwing the football where he needs to throw it. One of the two, and it could be a little of both. So I felt like the receivers didn't play well last night either. There was a couple drop balls. There was a couple 50-50 balls, and Minnesota won all of those. It seems like. I felt like the team played hard. They just didn't execute. Minnesota was bigger than us. I don't think they were faster. Not necessarily more talented, but they were definitely bigger, especially up front. But let's get to the coaching piece. This is where I'm really disappointed, and I'm still not saying Neil Brown needs to be fired. But here's what I do think. And I'm gonna be totally honest. I try to be really positive and try not to come down on people, but look, you guys are here to get my opinion. I'm gonna give it to you. We've got to make some changes on the offensive staff. I mean, the offensive play calling is sketchy at times, at best, in my opinion. They don't seem to be able to make adjustments in the middle of the game to whatever the defense is doing. We have a quarterback that can't run the ball, yet we run an RPO offense, which in my opinion works best when you have a quarterback who can run, because then you have three options versus just the run of the pass. You got the running back run, you got the pass, or you got the QB run. We don't have that option. So I just that 2-point conversion play where you have Doege scrambling out to throw a ball. I mean, what was that? Why do you run that play with a quarterback that's not mobile? I don't get it. That was just one example. They took away our screen game completely, which I was afraid would happen. I heard on the Mark Rogers show on the West Virginia channel, actually, of Mark Rogers' network, he had a Minnesota guy on, and the Minnesota guy talked about how Minnesota was good at taking away the screen game. And when he said that, I thought, uh-oh, that's not good, because West Virginia's bread and butter this year has been that screen. That's how they've been able to, anytime they've been in tough situations, they've been able to lean on that screen game to get them out of some tough situations. And Minnesota took that away, and it's like they were totally discombobulated, confused, didn't know what to do. But that's when the offensive staff, in my opinion, has to make some adjustments. Now, one thing I heard Neil Brown say in his postgame press conference, a couple things actually that I want to speak to. One, he made a comment that Minnesota went to a 3-down defensive line last night, which they hadn't been doing all season, and they went to a cover 2, which they hadn't been doing all season. And in his mind, they only done that because they knew West Virginia had some personnel issues in certain spots and maybe had some guys out. There was only one way, and he didn't come out and name names, but he said there's no other team in the country that would have known that. Now, you reading between the lines, what he's saying is Kirk Soraka gave that information to P.J. Fleck and his staff, which I kind of expected. I know he said he wasn't coaching on the field, but you know the staff's going to want some information about West Virginia. Now, do I think that would have made a difference in us in West Virginia winning the game? I don't. I don't think that was the difference in the game necessarily. But what disappoints me about that, and why that relates to coaching, is this: if you're getting paid $3 to $4 million a year, and your job as a coach, aren't you getting paid to make? Isn't part of your job to make in-game adjustments? If you see them doing something, you make in-game adjustments, or even better than that. Shouldn't you go into the week? I mean, you had 3 weeks to prepare. Shouldn't Coach Brown and his staff thought, wait a minute, Minnesota's going to have 3 weeks to prepare too, so they're probably going to come out with something different. They might throw some looks at us that we're not prepared for, or that we haven't seen. Maybe we should look at that. Shouldn't you be prepared for all possible scenarios when you go into a game like that, especially when you have that? Now, I understand if you only got a week to prepare, you probably got to look at tendencies and work off of tendencies. But when you got 3 weeks to prepare for a game, shouldn't you be expecting the unexpected? Maybe I'm totally wrong. And look, I'm not a coach. So if there's somebody watching that's a coach, let me know in the comments. Am I off base in thinking that? Or do coaches only go off tendencies? And also the in-game adjustment piece, it's like they didn't make any changes to the scheme, to the blocking scheme. Now, speaking of that, Another thing Coach Brown said in his post-game press conference that I didn't pick up on, obviously, we knew Michael Laughlin was out for the season, our starting tight end. Our second-string tight end, T.J. Banks, entered the transfer portal, so he was out. Our third-string tight end, Charles Finley, was out of the game due to COVID protocol. So we had no scholarship tight ends available for this game. And we were playing against a team with a top 10 defense. So we needed that extra blocker. So they had to play an offensive tackle at tight end for much of the game when they needed a tight end. So that totally took the tight end out of the playbook as far as the pass option goes, and was probably put them unable to go with any 12 personnel at all. Not that they do that a lot anyway, but so it forced West Virginia to try to run probably more spread style offense, which probably played right into the hands of Minnesota's strengths, to be honest with you. I feel like the coaching last night was not up to par on the offensive side especially, and I really think Coach Brown needs to take a look at his play calling or his offensive coordinator's play calling, whoever's calling the plays now. That needs to be in question. Honestly, and even though our O-line is young, I really feel like they underperformed in a lot of these games. And not that they just underperformed, they look totally lost at times. And I know a lot of that could have been the scheme. And there again, but that goes back to coaching. Maybe the offensive line coach, maybe they need to look at the offensive line coach position. Jarret Doege is a good guy. He's a hard worker. He's tough as nails. We saw that last night. He was taking a beating last night and he kept coming back. I'll be honest with you. I think for the betterment of the program and for the future of the program, I feel like it would be best for him to either transfer and play his last year somewhere else or just move on, because I just don't think Jarret Doege is a quarterback that can take West Virginia to the next level. I really don't. He's a good quarterback, but we need a great quarterback. We need somebody that can just take control of the offense when things aren't going great and breaking down. We need somebody that can make something happen. I don't know if Garrett Green's that guy. Maybe Nico ends up being that guy. I don't know. But it just seems like, Will Greer was able to do that. When things broke down, Will Greer could scramble out of the pocket. He wasn't real fast, but he could scramble good enough to get out of the pocket and make some plays. Run around long enough to buy himself some time. Doege can't even do that. And when your offensive line's struggling, man, you got to have somebody that can move around. I mean, I thought last night they should have brought Green in the second half. And not necessarily because it was all Doege's fault, but when your offensive line's not giving you a lot of time, put a quarterback in that can run. And they brought Green in for one play. He fumbles a snap, which that's on him. Never sees the field again. Now let's talk about expectations for next year. I don't know if trust to climb works anymore, but I will say this. I still think Neil Brown deserves a shot to be the coach of the Mountaineers. I still think he needs at least one more year. But next year, in my opinion, he's been 5-7, 6-4 in the COVID year, and this year he's 6-7. Not great progress from a win-loss perspective, which at the end of the day is what matters. So next year, in my opinion, if Neil Brown doesn't win at least 8 games, we need to go a different direction. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Let me know if you agree with my take on last night's game. Let me know what you think about the future in Morgantown. Let me know if you think Doege should come back next year or not. Would you like to see Jarret Doege come back for another year? Would you like to see him transfer or move on in some regard? Let me know. I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think about Neil Brown. Let me know what you think about trusting the climb. Let me know what you think about the offensive staff. What changes need to be made there. I want your thoughts, Mountaineer fans. And hey, Minnesota fans, kudos to your team. They come out last night. They beat us. They were prepared. They were well coached. They outmanned us, out-schemed us, and won the game fair and square. So kudos to Minnesota. Coach P.J. Fleck, good job. You were the better team. Hopefully, if we ever get to meet you guys again, it'll be a different result. Huge shout out to all the Minnesota fans that I've been communicating with the past couple of weeks through Facebook, YouTube, other avenues. You've been super friendly, super good group of people. Hope we can play you guys again in the future. Well, guys, I'm signing off. And even though we lost last night, I'm still proud to be a Mountaineer. So, Q Country Roads.